but I'm really excited this morning to hear from some members of our kind of extended community here in this valley that are doing some really cool things in terms of serving and being generous and really it's going to speak to what I think is really important for us to hone in on this morning, which is as we have been going throughout these different practices. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, but I want to reiterate, like, it's one thing to kind of hear teaching on the practices, the practices that we've been speaking about so far. We've talked about fasting, we've talked about Sabbath, we've talked about prayer, we've talked about community and solitude. Like, these things are great to like hear teaching on and kind of get the basic principles of, but putting them into practice is a whole different story. Those of you who have been trying as we've been walking throughout this, how many of you could attest to, like, when you start doing it, it's a whole different thing than just having the knowledge of it, right? So this morning we are talking about generosity and service. And it's important to note that these are spiritual practices. These aren't just kind of ambiguous like ideals. These are actually spiritual practices. These are ways that we engage in the lifestyle that Jesus modeled to us. And when we talk about generosity and service, again, easy to think about them as just ideals, as just things that we kind of like the sound of. But how do we move beyond just liking the sound of them? How do we move beyond them as ideals and move them into actual practices in our life? Now, I want to say, as you know, as a leader in this community for a long time, we do a really good job at this. I'll say you all. You all do a really good job at this. Those of you who have been a part of this community for a long time, you know what it means to serve, right? We have been the type of community that has relied on our people serving one another. And we've always done a really good job at modeling that. We've always been a very generous congregation. The one thing I will say about that is I think there are seasons where we have become a very internally generous congregation, an internally generous community. We've been very generous to one another. We've served one another really well. Sometimes we get so internal, not a bad thing, being internal is not a bad thing, but sometimes we get so internal that we forget that, we need to stretch beyond just ourselves. We need to serve actually those outside of our walls just as well as we serve those inside as we serve one another. And so the teaching this morning is going to kind of focus less on how are we generous to one another, how do we serve one another, and how do we go beyond this community and serve those outside of these walls. Does that make sense? Can we agree that, that's a thing? Like, yes, we are a very service-oriented people, but sometimes we serve one another better than we serve those outside of us. So that's what we're going to hone in on this morning. So again, as we've been saying each week, the idea of these things that we're talking about being practices and not just ideals is something we really need to focus on. The practices of generosity and service, and not just generosity and service. Does that make sense? How do these move beyond just something we do every now and then and actually become a practice of our lives? And here's, I think, the first principle that we need to understand when it comes to generosity is that generosity is a lifestyle. Generosity is a lifestyle. It takes cultivation for it to feel natural. How many of you have had moments in your life where, like, you've even surprised yourself by doing a thing that was very generous? Like, you've done this thing, you've given something that, like, in your deepest, like, I don't know, your deepest existence, you're like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I can't afford to do this. Whatever. You have all these excuses that you often come up with. And in the deepest depths of your soul, you're like, I don't think I can do this. But then there's something or someone that prods you a little further, that gives you that extra little kick, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do it. And when you do it, you almost surprise yourself with how generous that you can actually be. I've had these moments where I've come against these situations, and I'm like, I can do like this one thing here, and it could probably help the person that I'm being generous to. I can do this one act, but right now I just like there's something about it that like I don't want to do it. I want to hold on. I mean, you could take the most mundane example, right, of seeing a homeless person on the street. We actually we were in Boise this week, the last few days, and, similar to Salt Lake, like there's panhandlers, there's people around that are trying to solicit money and things and whatever. And man, we can get really like jaded to that kind of thing, right? You know who's not jaded? Children. We were walking down the street, and there was a guy sitting outside of this restaurant we were about to go into, and I didn't hear it at the time, but Glory told me later. Ivy saw him and told Glory, "Mom, we need to help." And it's one of those things where like kids are so unjaded by that stuff. And I understand being jaded. I understand like that, man, like it feels like what we're doing is we're just putting a Band-Aid on a situation. I understand that. I understand that feeling, and I think it's a valid feeling in some ways. But sometimes having the eyes of a child and just being like, what can I do to help in this moment? And thankfully, we had I probably shouldn't say this, but we still had some homeless bags in our car that we have had for months and months and months that we haven't given away. Hopefully everybody else has been better than us about that and actually given them away, but we still have them in our car. And so Gloria and Ivy went back to the car and got a bag and gave him. And again, not a big thing. In reality, it really is kind of just a Band-Aid on the situation, but it was twofold. It did help. It did give this person something that they needed. And then it also gave Ivy a chance to practice generosity. But the question is, how do we move beyond just this being a thing we do every now and then to actually making it a lifestyle, a practice? It takes cultivation. It doesn't feel natural. Our natural inclination is to get and to keep, right? Our natural inclination is to get things and to keep things. To get and to give is a choice. It's a choice that takes cultivation. It takes fostering the concept that this is actually a spiritual practice. To get in the habit of being a generous person. Turn with me, if you will. If you have your Bible or an app on your phone, you can turn using that. It will also be on the screen. But we'll be in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Didn't mark my pages this morning, so you have to bear with me. 1 Timothy chapter 6. We'll start in verse 6, and we'll read a few verses, and then we'll skip a few and read some more. So it says this, 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting in verse 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish, harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people, eager to have money, have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. But you, man of God, flee from all of this and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, endurance, and gentleness. We'll skip down to verse 17. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasures for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Now, there's a couple things going on in this passage. This is the Apostle Paul writing to Timothy, who is kind of his protege, kind of a person who he is training to be a pastor in a church, essentially. And he's writing to Timothy and saying, like, hey, here's how to approach the concept of generosity and giving and hoarding and all of these different things that you will ultimately face in the life of a church. Now, it's really interesting that Paul is teaching Timothy these things, because essentially what he's telling Timothy is like, hey, these things are going to come up. It's inevitable that this will be a thing that you face in the church, where people are not content with what they have and they want to gain more, and they'll do whatever it takes to gain more. And then you'll have people who have a lot and just keep that to themselves and don't do anything with it. But what Paul is telling Timothy is, look, you need to train people in the habit of being generous, in the habit of being generous, of seeing the things that we have in a different light. Now, we talk often here about the concept of time, talent, and treasure. Almost anytime someone talks about giving, we talk about giving of our time, our talent, and our treasure. And these are three things with which we can be generous. But I think the most important thing in this passage as it relates and pertains to the concept of generosity, and I think this is kind of where generosity and service are two different aspects of the same coin, two different sides of the same coin, is generosity is specific to our treasure. It's specific to the things that we have that we place value on. And what Paul is telling Timothy here is like, hey, look, you need to remind people, like, remind those who don't have much to be content with what they do have. And then tell those who have a lot, remind them to be generous with the lot that they have. But here's I think, another principle we need to kind of hone in on here is that generosity is not just a practice for the wealthy. Generosity is not just a practice for the wealthy. I think one of the confusing things that can come from even this teaching that Paul is doing to Timothy here is like, oh, well, he's telling, those who don't have much to just be content with what they have, and then he's telling the people who have a lot to give of what they have. Is he just saying that just the wealthy should be generous? I don't think that's what he's saying. I think that what he's doing is he's helping us to understand what value is and how we value things. He's giving us a principle to understand how we value our treasures. And what he's saying here is that, like, we can store up all the treasures on earth that we want, but ultimately they don't mean anything. They're temporary, they're passing away, they won't be forever, you can't take it with you, whatever cliche you want to use. But what can we actually do? What is it that we have of value that can move beyond just being of value to us and can also be of value to those around us who don't have what we have? The truth is, it's not just giving money and things. When you are generous, there's a tangible thing that happens. You're giving of your things, but what's really happening in its heart, underneath the surface, is that you are sharing life with one another. You're sharing something of yourself with someone else. And on the surface, it's just giving, but what's really going on is it's sharing. Another thing that I think we need to realize here is it's not a contest or a reason for comparison. I think this is what happens a lot of times in community, is that this concept of generosity becomes kind of a measuring stick for people, right? You can look at someone else who who you see as a very generous person who gives a lot of what they have, and you can be like, I can't be as generous as that person because I don't have as much. I think this is partly why God built into the fabric of his law a percentage. Now, we don't talk a whole lot here about the idea of this percentage, but the word tithe, which you might have heard used on occasion, the word tithe actually means tenth. It's literally a percentage. It's 10%. It's a tenth of what you have. That's what the word tithe means. And I think the reason God kind of wove that into the fabric of the law is not to give us a number, but it's more to level the playing field. It's to take away the idea of comparison. Hey, how many of you, if somebody said, okay, I need you to give $100 versus I need you to give a tenth of whatever it is that you have, which one is more intimidating? Even if $100 might not be that much to you, putting a number on it is almost a little more intimidating because you're like, well, I can afford to give more. Why would I just give 100? Or you're like, no, I can't afford 100, so I'm just not going to give anything, right? So it puts these like obstacles in the way, whereas when God said, hey, just give a tenth, he's kind of like taking away that pressure of comparing yourself to someone else. In my mind, that is the purpose of why God kind of said this idea of the tenth. I don't think if you're not giving a tenth of what you have, you're going against what God wants. I don't think that's the point. I think the point is to not compare your whatever you have to give with what someone else has to give. Just give what you can. Give a portion of what you have, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. It's not because generosity has to be a certain percentage, but it's to guard against comparison. All right, we're going to move pretty quickly here. So generosity, this is kind of how I started to look at it this week as I was thinking through kind of the difference between generosity and service. Generosity is how you serve others with your treasure. Generosity is how you serve others with your treasure. Service is how you're generous with your time and your talent. I don't know if that's helpful for you. That was really helpful for me as I was thinking through it, that generosity and service are two sides of the same coin, but generosity is how you serve others with what you have, with your treasure, with the things that you value, and service is how you're generous with your time and your talent. You see how both of those definitions have one another in them? Generosity is how you serve. Service is how you're generous. Let's turn real quickly to Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20, starting in verse 20. So this is a story about these two of Jesus' disciples. And it says this, then the mother of Zebedee's sons, so James and John were two of Jesus' disciples who were the sons of a guy named Zebedee. That's what's going on. And kneeling down, asked a favor of him. What is it you want? He asked. She said, grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in the kingdom. Now, first of all, those of you who are mothers in this room, imagine for a minute that your child was a disciple of Jesus, like actually with Jesus, walking with Jesus. Can you relate to what she's asking for here? Like, she just wants what's best for her kids, right? She wants her kids to be in a position of honor in this rabbi's, in his discipleship, in his apprenticeship. She wants them to be in a place of honor in this program, for lack of a better word, that they are in. And so she comes and she literally asks Jesus. And Jesus says, you don't know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup I am going to drink? We can, they answered. They don't know what the cup is. They don't know what it is yet, obviously. Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. So Jesus is having this conversation. He's entertaining this conversation for a moment, but then he gets to the heart of what's really going on here. He says, when the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Obviously, right? The other disciples are like, are you kidding me? Like, you think you can just, your mom can come and like get you a place in my kingdom? Like, what do you? So they were mad. Jesus called them together and said, you know that rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now listen, the way that Jesus answers this question is he's like, hey, I understand where this is coming from. You see what's going on all around you, and you see the way rulers function, in normal life outside of the kingdom of God. The way that rulers function is they use their authority and they lord it over people. And they gather people and they're like, all right, I'm going to put you here in this position of power. I'm going to put you here in this position of power. I'm going to give you authority over everyone else. And so that's what you're expecting from me because you hear me talking about my kingdom, but that is not how the kingdom of God works. He's like, in my kingdom, even the ruler is a servant. In my kingdom, the Son of Man, me, I did not come to lord over everyone and to hold everyone under my thumb. I came as a servant. And so when we think about the way that Jesus modeled these practices, think about the way that you have read about Jesus living his life. If you read through the Gospels, you do not see an authoritarian governor. What you see is you see a servant leader. Yes, he has authority. Yes, he speaks with authority, and everyone notices him speaking with authority, but he also goes out of his way to serve everyone he comes into contact with. Not to say, all right, bend your knee and then you can get what you want. That's not how things work in the kingdom. And so, I'll be a little bit critical here. So forgive me, but one of the most frustrating things for me as a pastor is seeing other pastors who lead from this place of like this authoritarian, like, yeah, everybody needs to like bend to my will and do whatever I ask them to do, but I'll just sit back and like just direct everybody and tell everybody where to go, and I'll just do that, and that's kind of how I'll lead. And I just can't help but ask myself, like, where do you see this in Jesus' life? If Jesus is not above service, then what makes us think that we should be? And it becomes like this abusive thing, and it's just really gross, and I don't like it at all. Like I've seen, I follow some of these like church accounts on, social media or whatever, and some of them are meant to be funny, but they're just sad. You know what I'm talking about? Like where it's like, you see these videos of these preachers just like yelling at everybody and berating everybody, and like on the surface it's like, oh, it's funny because like he looks like an idiot. But it's really actually very sad because it's this person who is functioning from a place that's so far from the heart of Jesus, but trying to share the gospel and the message of Jesus. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? No one is above serving. No one is above serving. And I think we need to continually come back to that and remind ourselves of that whatever it is that we are doing, whether we have authority in that situation or not, the only way to do it in the way of Jesus is to lay down part of that authority for the sake of serving the people that you, quote unquote, have authority over. That's the way Jesus did it. He had all the authority he could ever ask for. But the book of Philippians tells us that he did not consider equality with God something to be used to his advantage, but he laid it down and made himself nothing so that he could serve everyone and eventually lay his very life down for everyone. All right. I don't think we need a whole lot more information on the fact that service and generosity are things that are valued in the kingdom of heaven and they're practices that we need to cultivate in our lives. So I'm not going to say any more about it. But what I do want to do is I want to introduce you to some people who can give us some opportunities to do it. Because how many people, maybe the biggest obstacle for you is like, I want to do these things. I just don't know how. I don't know where to start. I don't know if I should just like go down and just give to the homeless. I don't know where to start here. And so we have a couple of different organizations that are represented here today. So Compassion Community Center is actually right here in our community. It's in Harriman, and they have been serving this area for a little bit now and are really, really doing some cool things. And so Courtney from Compassion Community Center is here. And I just want to give her the opportunity to just share, hey, this is what this organization is about, and this is why we exist, and this is our mission, all these kinds of things. And then I'll kind of ask her some questions that kind of pertain to our community and how we can be involved. So, Courtney. You guys welcome Courtney.
Hi, everyone. All right, we are the Compassion Community Center, and we started out as a small little pantry. It was a school pantry originally, and the school, it got so big that they decided to give it to another organization. Actually, not even an organization. It fell into my lap. So what was really cool about that is God had been calling me to the community, and he put me in a season of waiting. Has anybody had one of those seasons before where God's calling you somewhere and you're all, what am I doing with this? What he said is to abide in him. So a lot of the times when we talk about generosity and service, we start to think, oh, well, what do I have to do? What should I be doing? You go through that checklist of, oh, I need to do this and this. And God said, it's not about that. It's about abiding in me and letting me do it through you. So when we're going through this, not everything is meant for each one of us, right? God puts our heart towards an organization for a reason. He puts our talents. He gives each one of us a talent for a reason. Use what he gives you and let him work through you, right? So what we do is we are that entity that gives everybody the ability to love as Christ loves in our community. So primarily right now we are a food pantry. Why? Because that's an easy way to reach people where they're at and be able to show them compassion where they are instead of waiting for them to come to us. And in that vulnerable moment of their life, they're able to show us who they are, right? And sometimes when you see someone and those eyes are just so heavy and they just feel like the world has beat them up, those are the moments sometimes where Christ can reach us where we're at. And so we give them that, the people that volunteer that opportunity to just love on others. And so if that is you, if you're that type of person, you're a little bit more of an extrovert, we have those abilities, okay? We also give out clothes for free. So if you know anyone that needs clothes, we give clothes out, books out, toys out. And if you're that type of person that likes to get the things, right? You are an organizer and you like to help people get toys together to drop it off so we can just love little kids everywhere, every time they come into the center. We have those opportunities as well. We're going into domestic violence. We are in 5-year plan, we want different programs put together where if kids have a home life where they don't really have a parent that really hangs out with them, or think of all the other things that can come with that. They can come to the center and learn how to do arts and crafts and sports and things that just bring them together and are loved where they're at. So if you're that type of person that wants to bring your talents to the center, we have those opportunities as well. We serve on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30. We bring in teen groups on Wednesdays. From wherever they want to come from and whatever their past is, they can come and serve on Wednesdays and they help organize. We have organizational teams, we have marketing teams. We really, what we are and what we're headed towards is a place where we can unify in Christ's love. And what Christ did for us is he is God, and he made himself that form to be able to serve us, right? And people didn't understand him, right? People were coming up to Easter. People ultimately put him on the cross, and he gave his life for us. So when we're serving, that is our example, that selfless example of just loving people where they're at, and that's who we are. And so if you want that opportunity and you want to be able to love people where they are, or if you have something that's exciting in your mind that God's been calling you to, let's see if that's something that also is something that we could do at the center. Any questions? Yeah.
Okay, you can hold on to that. I got a
Really
built-on
loud
one.
about it, so.
All right, there I am. Okay, so just a couple questions. I should have prepared you for this way before, but it just came to me, so I'm sorry.
okay.
That
No,
happens.
you're good.
That happens a lot with me.
I also
So-
went off script, so it's fine.
All right, perfect. So when I'm thinking through the concepts of time, talent, and treasure, which is the way that we often speak about giving here, first of all, I'll just ask you, what would you see as a way that people can be generous and serve the Compassion Community Center with their time?
So with time, we have Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, we even have Sundays, and we're actually looking for more times of, if you're the type of person that wants to go to a store and pick up some items and drop it off, and that's just all that you do, we are starting to branch out to more different grocery stores, and we need that really quickly.
Yeah.
The cool thing is that's an outreach in its own, because you get to know the managers and the people in those places, and we've had so many God moments where we've been able to talk with them about that just because we're doing life with them. So that, if those are different times, a lot of it's in the morning, there's opportunities at night as well, but 6 days a week you have the opportunity to help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I wish Stacy was here. Stacy is at work right now, and she's a manager at Sprouts, so we might have a connection there for you.
That's amazing.
All right. So, in that same vein, what are ways that people can serve with their talent?
With their talents. So, depending, we have times where we can hand out food. We have events that we put on for the community so that we can go outreach where they're at. So if you're the event type of planner, you have that talent, please come in those moments. We have organizational moments. So if you love organizing and that is your talent, that is not my talent. I need people like you. That is perfect. That's a talent. Pretty much any talent you think God has really called you to, we could use in one way, shape, or form. So
Awesome.
Don't let anything that I didn't say hold you back.
Awesome. All right, and then the last thing, what are just the basic needs? What are ways we can serve with treasure?
We need toys. So if you're going through spring cleaning, toys are a good way. We could just take those from you, and I can even send you pictures of where it's going every Saturday. So books, same thing. If you have too many books, send them our way. Food, we are in desperate need of pasta right now. I know that seems so basic. Kohl's is going out. Sorry, been there a lot lately. Kroger is having their case lot sale, so this is a good time that if you want it to go far and stretch far, a lot of their case lot items are the items that we need. Not that I'm promoting Kroger, but that's just an easy avenue of being able to do it.
Sure.
Yeah, so items like that. Socks is another thing that you're working on.
Perfect.
We need clothes, socks, all those.
Perfect.
Basic necessities, even toiletries. That's another good thing. Shampoo, conditioner, soaps, those are important.
Awesome.
And those are our main basic needs. I know that sounds like a lot of them, but we really need them right now.
Awesome. All right, so so we are doing, our clothing drive. If you haven't seen this advertised, we've been trying to push it as much as we can for the last couple weeks now, maybe just a week, and that's probably the problem. So, but we do have some stuff that we're kind of gathering right over here to the side of the stage. If you brought anything, you can put it there. We were trying to get socks and underwear, just basic, very basic things that people don't want used of. You know what I'm saying? So you can. It's not too late for that either. We have, if you scan the QR code earlier to our digital bulletin, the link is still in there to our Amazon list that has that stuff on it. So you can still gather those things, and then. What are ways that people can just connect with you, other than obviously come talk to her after if you want to find out some more information about specifics? But what are other ways people can connect with
So if you don't connect with me today, I'll send you pretty much a digital card that'll send you to all of our needs and how you can get connected. It's a QR code as well, so if you want to make it super basic, I'll send that to you, and then you can use it however you would like.
Perfect.
We also have a Facebook, but that might be easier.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you, Courtney. Thank you so much. You guys give her a hand. All right. So the second organization we're going to hear from is called Because He First Loved Us. And they are specifically an organization that serves refugees and displaced people here in the Valley. And so there's a video that we're going to watch, and then Danelle will come up and share some more after this video. So you guys watch this.
Hi, my name is Danelle Alcala, and I'm the director of Because He First Loved Us.
My name is Dominic Phillip. I'm from South Sudan. I came to Utah in '03 as a refugee.
My name is Mason Dupé, and I'm the head basketball coach at West High School.
Hi, my name is Amira. I am from the Central African Republic. I came to the US in 2019 as a refugee.
Hello, my name is Nsozi. I'm 29 years old, and I was born in Kenya.
Because He First Loved Us exists to see newcomer families find healing, hope, and home here in Utah. Building meaningful relationships with individuals and families is our overall focus as we live life together. Although our newcomer friends demonstrate incredible resilience as they navigate their traumatic past and the challenges of settling in a new country, they're at higher risk for depression, anxiety, complex PTSD, and other mental health challenges. This is why we have pivoted the majority of our time, attention, and resources to meeting those needs.
I met Danjuma and Danelle at church with Because He First Loved Us. They were talking about that, and also Hard Work Crew, the basketball program that they have, just helping the youth and mentoring them. And I wanted to step in as a coach, as a mentor, whatever I could do to help them on and off the court, and just be that example to them. And now I started my own basketball program, which they've inspired me to keep on running, and is the reason why I'm doing this.
What I like with Danelle is not only she was like a great support in my personal life, she also is a very supportive person, like professional. I also started a nonprofit 2 years ago, and Danielle is one of my best supporters. She shows up at my events, she promoted my events, and she offers her help. And I also like what she's doing with her nonprofit for the community. She has been not only supportive for me, but also for the members of the community through her nonprofit and programs.
So I first became involved with Because He First Loved Us in December of 2012. I volunteered. I was at a Sub for Santa. It was for refugees. My friends were putting it on. And I met Danjuma, and he was looking for volunteers to coach basketball. Me and my good friend Derek decided we'd volunteer and help.
I met Danelle when I was 10 years old, and she's been in my life ever since. Danelle is like a big sister to me because she's been guiding me and pushing me all my life. And now I've become a single mom. She's there for me and my kids.
I started it because God inspired me to do so. I actually thought that He was going to send me to work in Africa, but little did I know He was going to bring Africa right here to me in Salt Lake City, Utah. I heard about this gal tutoring some refugee kids at her house, and I decided to go over there and volunteer. And it was from that night on, that I decided to start this program. One of the things is that I see myself in these families and in these children. The struggles that they all face are the same struggles that I faced as a young lady, as a teenager, and even as a young adult. And I needed someone to reach out to me and be there for me, and I didn't find that. And so I wanted to be that safe place to help people find hope and love that I was so desperate for and couldn't find.
So making this decision was life-changing. It really changed my career path, and it helped me find out what I wanted to do in life. At that moment, I was going to college. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college. I was just going through my classes. When I volunteered with Derek, we just had a great time with the kids that we worked with. and we saw them have success in their own lives and on the basketball court. So doing that after a year, I decided that I was going to change my career path. I ended up going back to school. I didn't even love school, but I knew that this was going to be something that was going to be worth it. So I went back to school, got my degree in physical education, and now I'm at West High School.
I was inspired to do what I do, and because He First Loved Us, they've always encouraged me to keep on going, and they've always been there to encourage me and to guide me along the lines and show me how it is and how it started. I've been inspired, and this is the reason why I'm still doing it, and I'm excited to be working with them.
Time is the biggest commodity. It's the way that you show you care the most, because it's what we have the least of. And that is the way in which we help people be seen, feel safe, soothed, and secure, is by giving of our time, being in a relationship with them. That's why we focus on relationships, because that's the most valuable thing we can give. In regards to resources, some people, their life situations don't allow them to give up time. They've got families, they've got careers, they've got other things that take up their time. But we also need resources so that we can provide needed resources that they don't otherwise have access to, as well as financial support, because that is how we run. We have been volunteer ran and community funded this entire time. So we are very different than any other refugee organization. We don't get any government grants. We aren't ran through the state or the federal government. We do this with help from people like you, because I feel like that gives us the least restrictions. When you start getting into the other things, it makes them your clients. It doesn't make them your friends. And what they need more than anything is friends, not stuff, not things, but friends.
Working on my nonprofit, I've been interacting with a lot of nonprofits, a lot of organizations, and what I really like with Danelle is the way she does with us. It's more personalized, it's more relationship. So, for refugees, I am also a refugee, and we are looking for relationship. I came here to be safe, and I feel like with Danelle, I have a friend, I have a supporter, and this is actually what, a person looks for in a relationship. Somebody who's here not only to support you, but also to offer her help and to be here to, to hear you and to be here for you in a daily basis. So this is really cool.
Now, as a single mom, there was a lot of challenges with Danelle by my side, and her pushing me and being there for me as a single mom. That is like something that I had a dream, that my dream was like to become a nurse, and Danelle being in my side, she is there and guiding me to that kind of dream I had in my life. She's helping me fulfill my dreams, and her being there with everything. Danelle is somebody that I can trust. She's like a big sister to me. She's an auntie to my kids, and her being in our life is everything to us. And I am just proud that Danelle is still in my life, me and my kids, her being there. We have hope that I can make it through where I want to be.
Our Hagar's Hope program invites women into a safe and gentle relationship environment where they can find acceptance and genuine connection. We provide connect groups where access to basic mental and emotional health education, coping skills, strategies, and resources are shared and friendships flourish. Our Healing Arts initiative is where we utilize art and dance as tools to expressing and releasing hard emotions. Many studies have shown that engaging in creative arts can help in reducing symptoms of anxiety, depression, pain, and stress by 73%. Through our Let the Children Come program, we provide resources and support through emotional and mental health education for kids 3 to 18. Through our sports partnerships, we work with boys and girls from 5th to 12th grade, helping them focus on athletics, academics, behavior, and character and community.
What really inspired me to make a change in my career path was just seeing the difference I was making in the boys' lives. I don't feel like I was doing a ton. I was spreading basketball knowledge, giving them rides, and being a mentor, but I could see the growth and the excitement they had towards basketball. And that's something that I love is basketball. So that kind of really got me see my love for basketball again and to help me go back to school and want to change these kids' lives that I was working with and change kids' lives that I was going to work with in the future.
With this program, we want to expand helping these youth and these kids, and we want to eventually help the older kids get scholarships and go on to college, but just keep on having more and more teams and more players coming in as much as possible and just go from there.
This is what I'm asking for today. We want to inspire and ultimately motivate others into action. Our greatest need right now is financial partnerships. We truly cannot do this without your help. We need to raise at least $75,000 annually to continue providing these much needed services. As you look at these families and these children, ask yourself, if this were my family or my children, what wouldn't I do to see them succeed? Hi, my name is Danelle Alcala. Hi, my name is Danelle Alcala. Okay, good morning. Honestly, I don't know what else I could possibly say when I came up here. But our name, I just thought I would share. Obviously, I'm sure you've heard it. In 1 John 4:19, it says, "We love because he first loved us." And so that is what we do. That is literally what we do in our program. That's what we do. People, I feel like, make it really complicated, and it's really not that complicated. We just love, and much like what she shared, I like to sit down with people personally, privately, and go over what you feel like God has gifted you to do, and then that's where I plug you in, right? Because all of us, like she said, all of us don't have the same gifts. We don't have the same skills. We don't have the amount of time, or we don't have that kind of stuff. And so pretty much you just show up to do whatever it is God gifted you to do in the way that he gifted you to do it. So I just thought I'd just share a couple of verses, and then I think Dustin's going to come up. So in John 13:34, it says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another." Obviously, there's lots of voices all over the place telling us what we shouldn't do. Right now, especially with newcomers. So I just thought, since we're at church and we all believe in the Bible, I was going to just read some verses that talk about what we should be doing for the newcomers in our country. In Hebrews 13:2, it says, "Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for by so doing, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it." Matthew 25:31-46. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Jesus uses the parable of the sheep and the goats to illustrate that welcoming the stranger, along with other acts of kindness, is a reflection of how we treat him. In Leviticus 19:33-34, it says, "When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the stranger. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you. You shall love him as yourself, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." In Exodus 23:9, it says, "Do not oppress the foreigner. You yourselves know how it feels to be foreigners, because you were foreigners in Egypt." Those are just a few verses, and although I'm assuming, I could be wrong, none of us were foreigners in Egypt, but we have all found ourselves in a place where we didn't know what we were supposed to be doing, or we didn't speak the language of the people around us, or their culture and their community was very different. What I love to do is go to liturgical churches on Holy Week. So since we're getting there, I'm just saying this, because I have no clue what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So we usually end up at the same church every week, and we do the same thing, and we forget as newcomers, even at church, what it felt like when we showed up and didn't know when we were supposed to stand or sit or sing. We didn't know the words. We know where our kid's supposed to go. All the things. We just don't know that. We get comfortable in that. So I love to go to the liturgical churches, because I literally have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know how to sing anything they're saying. And it's beautiful, because that reminds us that's how we feel. And we forget a lot, because we get comfortable wherever we are. We all do. It's not a bad thing. But then we forget how it is to not be comfortable. So that's it.
That's great. Thank you. So I will just ask you those same basic questions. You gave some pretty specific stuff in the video, which is awesome. But if you can think of maybe some more specific examples that speak to these, so how can people specifically give of their time?
Yeah, so some of the things that we will be kicking off again now that it's getting warmer is I've been doing art in the park, where you see that you saw that on the video, and anyone can show up and do that. I am not an artist. I literally just show up. It's a way that God has helped me with my own PTSD and trauma. It's something I do with him in the morning. I just do worship art, and so I'll often pick a topic so we have something to go by, and then we literally just do it together. And so that kind of leaves it open to anyone. Moms can come because I'll try to do it at a park, so we'll be right by the playground, things like that. So that's the thing we're going to be starting up here soon now, if it stops snowing, and spring actually returns. And that can be for men and boys as well. So my husband was referenced a ton, but we have opportunities for, I don't know if there's any men of color in here right now, so I can't see you guys that well, but there are Black Physicians of Utah do Black mental health, mental forums, things like that. That's something you could go to, and also bring along any of our young men that need that resource. So that's a couple ways you could help with your time.
Okay. How can people serve with their talent?
Talent. I guess I would kind of go with that too, huh? Again, I guess it's really just the gifting. So, for example, if you're a family and you have a 5 or 6 year old kid, I try to pair you with someone who has a 5 or 6 year old kid, and then I just go, be their friend. And then people go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, like the rest of your friends. What do you mean? So if your kid's having a birthday party, invite their kids. If you're taking, your kids hiking, invite them and their kids. So you just welcome them into your life. If you're a single man, you can mentor even some of our dads literally need people to walk alongside them and just be their friend. But also our teenage boys, that's a big place. We obviously have sports opportunities. We have dance opportunities. I don't know if this should have been our time or not, but that's a huge need I have right now. So you saw the dance studio. They will let our kids come and get professional dance lessons for free. And I have no one that's willing to help me take them there and bring them home. So that's a huge way you could help right away.
That's awesome. That's very, very practical. And then Treasure, you did mention, the specific amount that you guys try to raise each year. Can you kind of help us to understand, are there moments where there are like specific needs that come up where you need to meet those, or is the idea we raise this to kind of cover all of those things? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so our giving is really kind of any way that works best. So I have individuals that just donate monthly. We have people that do give a big lump sum, so end of year giving, everything's tax deductible, so if you need to do that, obviously we just pass that, but thinking forward and ahead. We partner with churches who go, hey, we want to, as a congregation, support you once a month, so they'll donate that way. Sometimes it's just practical things. So, for example, if something's coming up, I hold retreats for women. And so if you have an Airbnb, I have to rent those. So I've had people donate their Airbnb. So I take them where they finally get a break from their kids. Or if they're teenage girls, they get to get out of their house because they're kind of like the second mom. And then I just literally spend time helping them, teaching them, helping them know how to support themselves better and that kind of thing. So people do that practically as well. If you have an Airbnb, or if you want to donate, hey, I want to donate, candles. Oh, not candles, but like things that soothe and calm yourself, natural things like just essential oils, things that we know about. Most of our community doesn't even know about those things. Weighted blankets, because they can't sleep because of their PTSD. So if I'm going to have a retreat, I will put out like a request like that, like, hey, I need 10 things of Epsom salt. I need 10 adult coloring books. So just various ways you can give.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Danielle. You guys give her a hand. Okay, and I want to mention one more thing. I didn't know beforehand that Kelly was going to be here. Kelly, would you stand up? You guys say hi to Kelly. So Kelly runs a homeless ministry downtown, just literally like bringing the gospel, bringing the good news to people who have struggled with addiction and just various things that. And so if that is something that you are that like piques your interest. I won't spring it on Kelly to share that right now because I didn't talk to her about it beforehand. But if there's anything in there that piques your interest, please go talk to her as well and find out some more specifics about what she does. So here's kind of how I want to close. Oh, this is not my phone. Here's how I want to close. I just want to say just a couple words about kind of how as a community we're going to approach this, these partnerships, these things that we've been talking about. I had a very long phone conversation with Danelle, and I'm sure she doesn't mind me sharing this, but one of the things, like, she's had some like trepidation about partnering with churches, because one thing that happens a lot with churches is churches will volunteer to do something, and they'll show up and they'll do this one thing, and they'll take the pictures and they'll put them on Instagram, and everybody will look at how awesome this thing is that this church did, and then they'll never show up again. And I'm not going to say we have not been guilty of that, right? With the things that we have done as a community, we went down to the road home or the Salt Lake Rescue Mission, and we served a meal like 2 summers ago. And we did that one thing, and then we haven't really done anything else with them. And the truth is, we have struggled to find ways to really like truly partner with organizations like this out in our area, because we kind of perceive this area as being a more affluent part of the valley, and there just aren't as many needs, or they're harder to find, or whatever. And we've used all those things as excuses. And while they are valid to some degree, we don't want to be the kind of church that uses those excuses. We want to find ways to actually continually practice service and generosity, not just one time, not just once a summer, not just every now and then, but continuously. And so here's my encouragement to you. Rather than relying and waiting on an organized event that Cultivate puts together to go out and do one of these things, I want to encourage you to partner individually with these organizations as they resonate with your heart. Because the way that we can, as a community, truly serve and be generous in areas like this is not to organize things where things are already organized. It's to empower you, to encourage you, to embolden you to find ways that resonate with your heart individually. Because we can plan on doing these one-off events here and there, but some of you, you're like, this doesn't resonate with me at all. Like, this is just a thing that I'm just tagging along and doing, but it doesn't really like speak to my heart, and I don't really feel like I'm doing anything here. You ever had those moments when we've gone and done things? And so I just want to encourage you to connect individually with all of these people who have shared, and even those who haven't, and just find ways that actually, like, when you do these things, when you pour yourself into these partnerships, they actually like give you life. Because that's what the spiritual practices are all about. They're about giving you the life that God has in store for you, life and life to the full, as Jesus said. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And we will organize things. I'm not saying like, oh, we're not going to do anything. We will. We will organize these events and make use of these partnerships, and we'll do things, but I don't want you to rely on the events. I want you to find ways within your own life, your own rhythms, your own flow, to actually serve and be generous with your time, your talent, and your treasures. So we're going to move into a time of communion, and I want to invite you, as you come and as you take the bread or the gluten-free version, if you need it. As you take this, you take the bread, you dip it into the juice. Remember what we've been talking about Jesus laying his life down and serving others and being generous with his very life. This is the picture of that concept. It's the picture of that spiritual truth that Jesus laid himself down for us. His body broken for us, his blood spilled for us. As we take this, would you find ways to be more generous and more serving and to put those things into practice? Let me pray and I invite you to come as we sing. And Father God, we thank you for these words that we've heard this morning of encouraging us and giving us ways to partner with people who are already have their boots on the ground, so to speak, who are already doing things to serve those who are in need. And would you help us to partner with these people who are already doing the work? Would you inspire us, but would you also put our feet in motion and our hands in motion so we can actually do? We can not just talk, we can not just think, we can not just reflect, but we can actually do. And God, would we be inspired this morning by your body broken for us, your blood spilled for us? May we recognize that we serve and we love because you first served and loved us. It's in Jesus' name. Amen. You guys come forward as you're ready.